A man whose job is to protect the state from a cyber attack is also dealing with his family protecting their home country of Ukraine from a Russian invasion. Joining us now is Vitaliy Panych, the head of cybersecurity with California's Department of Technology. And Vitaliy, thank you for joining us. I know you have a lot on your mind with your family in Ukraine, but first I wanted to ask you about cybersecurity here in our state. So when the war in Ukraine broke out, there was a concern that Russian hackers would target the United States with cyber attacks. So how big is the threat here in California?
Well, first of all, our strategy is really to emphasize a good defense to start. Really, that's focused on prevention, detection, and really so if something bad does happen, we're able to respond quickly and swiftly to minimize the cyber threat. Specifically, we've been increasing our cyber exercises, exercising our response plans, drilling our defenses, and really closely monitoring some of our digital connectivity as it pertains to high-risk parts of the world. Really, we're partnering with state military, emergency services, and our law enforcement partners, all for the purposes of exchanging timely and critical information within our cybersecurity community. Specifically, we bring in over 300 of our state, local, and local partners really to drive proactive action. The threat is real. We're definitely monitoring the situation in case it does spill over from what's happening in Ukraine and the cyber domain. And we're investing an immense amount of ability to be able to respond and be ready if something does happen and does affect our nation here on the home front.
And you talked about some high-risk areas. Are there any specific areas of the state being targeted the most, like our infrastructure or our power grid?
Specifically, we've seen before the actual physical invasion happened on Ukraine, we've seen Ukraine being attacked in the cyber domain, targeted for their critical infrastructure, wastewater environments. And really, we're watching those types of attacks, which are really classified as disruptive attacks or intended to disrupt operation within wastewater districts as well as the energy sector. So we're closely watching the threat as it evolves and really aiming at our defenses and keeping up our defenses so that we're ready for similar types of attacks in case they do bleed over into the rest of the world.
You had mentioned the infrastructure. The last couple of years, there were some infrastructures that were hit throughout the country, not necessarily in California. But what did our state learn from those attacks?
Specifically, we're partnering with our federal partners, with the Department of Homeland Security, and really exchanging relevant and timely threat indicators of how those disruptive type attacks occur and how they operate within an environment. And we're applying defensive tactics based on what we learn, from evolving our security operations center to increasing our staffing within our threat intelligence practice. So really evolving our defenses based on what we learn from the past.
And so far, California has been safe?
Relatively safe, but that's not to say that we can't be targeted. But our mode of operation is really to emphasize our preparedness and really emphasize our preparedness so we're ready to respond for those types of attacks at a moment's notice and be able to mitigate and contain the types of disruptive attacks that we've seen on other energy sectors, as well as organizations all across the globe as it pertains to nation-state threat actors.
And you're looking at a very broad view, but what about specific businesses? What about everyday people? What can they do to protect themselves from a cyber attack?
Specifically, businesses and individuals, what I really tell my family and my friends is really safeguard or protect your devices as well as your accounts. By protecting your accounts, that means having secure passwords, always keep them private, keep them complex, but really important, I want to emphasize in using multi-factor authentication or a secondary form of authentication, which adds an additional layer of defense to protect your access. So things like MFA or two-factor authentication, anything you do when you transact online, whether it be at work or whether it be in your personal lives. So leverage two-factor authentication in your banking, social media, or anything you do when you transact online. And then secondly, really patch your devices. Make sure you apply critical updates to your computers, to your smartphones, to your home routers, and everything you do that's interconnected needs to be patched and updated, not only with the latest security updates that normally come from vendors and providers, but also applying antivirus and anti-malware. Keep that up to date, both at home and at work.
And Vitaliy, as we mentioned earlier, you are from Ukraine, and as you're staying busy here in the state of California, I wanted to ask you, what part of the country of Ukraine is your family from, and where is your family right now?
Yes, I was born in Kiev, Ukraine, and my family, my immediate family and I, we immigrated about 3 decades ago, back when Ukraine was under Soviet control. So really, my parents wanted to give me an opportunity for freedom, for democracy, and partake in everything we have here, what I call my homeland. So really, my immediate family is here with me. However, it's an absolute travesty. My extended family is still back in Ukraine. Some members of my family are having to hide out in underground bunkers, shelters to keep themselves safe from any potential physical bombing. But then there are others that are literally holding up the front line and really trying to deter and fight off Russian tanks. So it's an absolute travesty to have to hear on what's going on as they're fighting for their freedoms out there in my birth town. But really, my main focus is keeping our state, our homeland here, secure, and really be able to fend off any potential cyber threats as they potentially can bleed over.
You talk about your family hunkering down in the capital city, also on the front lines, just amazing there. Are you able to have contact with your extended family right now?
Yes, we're keeping in constant communication with them.
And will they be able to evacuate, or are you going to be able to get them out?
Some have already evacuated, but obviously there are many folks out there that really don't want to see their home invaded upon, and they will stand their ground. That's for sure.
And here in America, as you are now, this is you called your home now. Have you been surprised by the outpouring support for Ukraine?
Yes, I'm very grateful and really extremely grateful for all the humanitarian efforts and all the relief efforts being provided to the people of Ukraine, especially within our tech community here in California. Been astounded with what our companies, what our private sector companies are doing to really help the citizens and residents of Ukraine to help them out and keep them up and available so that we can constantly communicate and share information with what's going on the home front or on the home front out there.
And one final question, as you continue to protect our state from a cybersecurity attack, what is your hope for the future for your family and your country?
Really, I hope that they stay safe, number one, and really are able to protect themselves and enjoy the freedoms and opportunities that they ought to enjoy, that we enjoy here in California and in our nation. So really, safety number one, and the opportunity for freedom.
And we want to say thank you very much, Vitaliy Panych, head of cybersecurity for the state's Department of Technology. We want to thank you for your work here in California. We also want to give you our thoughts and prayers for your family in your home country of Ukraine. So thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you. I appreciate that, Ryan.